Welcome back to the Old Soul Millennial channel. You're currently looking at my concrete stoop, and it has a few issues and I'd like to get them addressed today. So what are the issues? Well, for one, there's some discoloration. I'd like to have one uniform color. Additionally, the bigger issue, there are many hairline cracks throughout this pad. And I know a lot of you are probably going to say, well, big deal, don't worry about it. Well, I do worry about it. You know why? I live in the Northeast and we get freezing temperatures. What I'm concerned about is water falling into those cracks, temperature dropping below freezing, and when that water freezes, it expands, and that could potentially start blowing out this concrete pad. I don't want that to happen. So I'm going to show you a little trick I learned from one of my favorite YouTubers. The YouTuber's name is Mike Haddock. He's a mason out of Pennsylvania. Unfortunately, he's retired down in Florida, doing some small jobs now, but I've learned a lot from him. Great guy, definitely check out his channel. But we're just going to do the old Portland trick here. So without further ado, let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do, while everything's dry, I'm going to tape off all areas where I don't want this Portland paint to get on. I just painted this wood here, so I want to protect that. I'm going to do that with some blue painter's tape. So I just finished with the blue tape, taped off all areas I don't want this Portland paint to get on. The next thing we need to do is wire brush the affected area. We want to try and get it as clean as possible. I have power washed this in the past, but lizards like to come up here and poop. So we're just going to clean it up a little bit with a wire brush. You should wear a respirator because this could kick up silica and that scars your lung tissue. But I just got to get this done right now. You know, one of my favorite quotes by Mike Haddock, it ain't no big deal. And he's right. Honestly, a lot of these repairs, not a big deal. Next thing we need to do is to hose off the pad. Now, we do this for two reasons. One, to wash away all that junk we just brushed up. But the second reason, a little bit more important, is this allows the Portland paint to stick to the concrete. If you want it to stick, it's got to be wet. Alright, now we're getting to the good stuff. So this is a bag of Portland cement. This only comes in a 90-pound bag in my area, unfortunately, so if you do buy a bag like this, try and find some other masonry projects around the house. But other tools you're going to need some type of coffee can or a can to mix the paint in. I have a pointer, margin trowel, and paintbrush. So I'm going to take my margin trowel, scoop out some Portland, put it in this coffee cup. Maybe I'll fill it up a third of the way. I'm going to add some water to this coffee can. Basically what we're trying to do, we're trying to mix up a thick paint here. So I'm going to use the pointer, just mix this up. If it's too thin, I could always add more. If it's too thick, I'll add a little bit of water. And I'm pretty happy with that consistency. So I'll take my paintbrush and dip it in here. I'll show you the consistency. It's like real thick yogurt-like. That's about what you want. So now let's take this back to the stoop and paint it on. So back at our pad, you just want to ensure that there's no water pooling. It's damp, but there's no pooling water. Another thing we need to pay attention to is when they finish this pad, they put a brush finish in this direction. So when we go to paint, it's important that we try to match that. If we go cross grain, it may look a little weird. So I'm going to try and go with the grain here, and then the edge right here, we'll try and bring the paintbrush this way, so we'll try and match what was there originally. So we'll just paint this on. This is even a little bit too thick, but I think it'll be alright. You can see I missed my mark a little bit right there. No big deal. Just have a rag nearby to wipe it off. No big deal. I'm actually going to add a little bit more water to this. So the edge is a little bit tricky. Just try and match what they did. So you can see quite a big difference already. Now it's starting to get a little bit dry, and that you don't want. You want to ensure that the concrete is damp. Additionally, if you do plan to do a second coat, it's best to let this cure and then come back and do a second coat. If I were to try and do a second coat right now, because it's partially wet, what will happen is it'll start to kind of crumble, kind of bunch up, and it won't be as smooth and as nice as what it is right now. So I'm going to get this area a little bit more damp, and I'm probably going to use the rag because I don't want to over damp the area. Then we'll just continue to paint on. So I woke up this morning, wasn't 100% pleased with how the first coat came out, so no big deal, just apply a second coat. So the process for applying a second coat, you just want to lightly dampen the surface, mix up your Portland in that can, and then just give it a second coat. A tip I do have, with your brush strokes, try and make one continuous brush stroke. Don't stop halfway through because it'll look a little bit ridiculous, but really pleased with how the second coat is coming out. And I'd imagine later on this afternoon, when this dries, we'll peel the tape off and give you the grand reveal. So it's been about 12 hours since I've applied the second coat. Additionally, I've applied a bead of clear silicone along the edge of the pad where it meets the wood paneling, just to ensure that no water is able to penetrate into the house. I gotta tell you, I'm pretty pleased with how this turned out. If I'm being hypercritical, of course you can see that there's a few darker lines here, and that notes where I did a section and then moved on to the next section, the next section. If I wanted to get rid of those, I'd probably do a third coat. However, I'm more than okay with how this looks right now. At the end of the day, there's going to be a mat that goes over this, and the biggest thing for me is that all those cracks are filled in, so our pad is now much better protected. Probably could use a third coat, but again, at the end of the day, those cracks are filled in. Definitely pleased with the results. Final thing I will do off camera in the future is I will apply a stone sealer to this pad as well as my front steps. Not sure what kind of stone this is, maybe a sandstone, something of that nature, but applying a stone sealer helps to prevent water from penetrating into the porous surface of either the pad or the stone, so it'll kind of bead, and if everything's pitched properly, it'll run away from the structure. So that's all I have to say. Thanks for watching. As always, I will catch you on the next one.